Dear students, good morning. Today we will see very interesting topic about new kings and kingdoms. When we hear history of kings and kingdoms, always will give pleasure to our heart. Okay, Babu. Now I will say what are the various topic be in this chapter. The emergence of new dynasties, administration in the kingdoms, Prasastas and land grants, warfare for wealth. The Cholas dynasties, Muttarayar and Vijayalaya Cholas, Raja I and Rajendra I Chola. Splendid temples and bronze sculpture, agriculture and irrigation, the administration of the empire, Brahmadeya and finally inscriptions. Children, these are the topics which comes under the new kings and kingdoms. Students, many new dynasties emerged in between the 7th and 12th century in Indian subcontinent. Students, anybody knows about the kingdoms? What is the kingdom? As a country or state ruled by a king or queen, it's called kingdom. Now we will discuss about the emergence of new dynasties. Can you say anyone what you mean by dynasties? Yes, you are absolutely correct. Dynasties means is a king's generation, Babu. During 7th century, big landlords, warrior chiefs played important role. Who is known as landlord? Yes, a landlord is the owner of the large size of land and the landlords have huge money. That person is called landlord. But students, who is known as warrior chief? Yes, a leader able to operate military is called warrior chief. Students, now we are going to see very important person during 7th century. As now we see about Samanthas. Landlords and warrior chief also known as Samanthas. So, students, Samanthas was a name given to big landlords and warrior chiefs in different regions of the Indian subcontinent by the existing kings of the 7th century. After that, Babu, Samanthas were expected to bring gifts for the kings or overlords, be present in their courts, and also provide them with military support. Now you understood clearly about Samanthas. Now we are going to see about Maha Samanthas or Maha Mandaleshwara. Children, so as Samanthas gained power and wealth, they declared themselves to be Maha Samanthas or Maha Mandaleshwara. Students, now you know who called Maha Samanthas or Maha Mandaleshwara, Babu? Yes, your answer is correct, Kanna. As Samanthas gained power and wealth, they declared themselves to be Maha Samanthas or Maha Mandaleshwara. Students, maybe you will think that the name Maha Mandaleshwara have some meaning. Yes, Babu. This unique name Maha Mandaleshwara have some special meaning. Students, Maha Mandaleshwara means the great lord of the circle or region. Times Mahamandaleshwara confirmed their independence from their overlords. Okay, Babu, I will tell one such instance or example was that of the Rashtrakutas in the Deccan. Initially, Rashtrakutas were subordinate to the Salukyas of Karnataka. But in the mid-8th century, Rashtrakuta chief Dandi Durga overthrew this Salukya overlord. Hence, Dandi Durga performed a ritual called Hiranyagarbha or Golden Womb. This ritual was performed with the help of the Brahmanas. There was a belief in the people of the time. Ritual was thought to lead the rebirth of the sacrificer as a Kshatriya. Hence, another amazing instance regarding establishment of kingdoms, Kadamba Mayura Sharman and Gurjara Pratihara Harichandra. Both were basically Brahmanas. Students, during that period, it was the profession of the Brahmins to perform puja and perform rituals in the temple. But these two Brahmanas, who are they? Kadamba Mayura Sharman and Gurjara Pratihara, gave up that traditional profession and took to arms, that is military, and they were establishing kingdoms in Karnataka and Rajasthan. Students, let us see how the kings of that period did administration in their kingdom, and we will see how the kings received the taxes and from whom they received them. The kings were obtained resources from producers, that means peasants, cattle keepers, artisans. Hence, the producers who were compelled to surrender part of what they produce. Revenue also collected from traders. Now we see how the taxes received from farmers were used. Resources were used to finance king's establishment, construction of temples and forts, and also kings used to fight wars. Let us see now who collected revenue during that period. Simply says, today in our democracy country, income tax department responsible to collect the tax. Like that, during the 7th century, revenue collected by influential families and close relatives of the kings. Now, let us discuss about high sounding titles of kings Maharaja Adiraja Tribhuvana Chakravartin. Many of the new kings adopted high sounding titles such as Maharaja Adiraja Tribhuvana Chakravartin. Tribhuvana Chakravartin means Lord of the Three Worlds. Students, we will see important topic about Prasastas and land grants. Prasastas tell us how rulers wanted to depict themselves as valiant, victorious warriors. Many rulers described their achievements in Prasastas. Students, these were composed by learned Brahmanas. That means kings often rewarded Brahmanas by grants of lands. Kings often recorded Brahmanas by grants of lands. These were recorded on copper plates. Students, you got it? These copper plates were given to those who received the land. Once again, I will repeat about the copper plates. This is a set of copper plates recording of grant of lands made by a ruler in the 9th century. One more time. This is a set of copper plates recording a grant of lands made by a ruler in the 9th century. These copper plates written partly in Sanskrit and partly in Tamil. The ring holding the plates together is secured with a royal seal. These copper plates to indicate that This is an authentic document. What do you mean by authentic document? That means it is a genuine document. Original document. What do you mean by authentic document? Yes, you are absolutely correct, Babu. Authentic document means original document or genuine document. Now you understood clearly the word copper plates. I will give one instance for Prasastas. Kalhana was a great Sanskrit poet who wrote a long Sanskrit poem describing the history of Kashmir. He used a variety of sources including inscriptions, documents, eyewitness account. One more time. Kalhana used a variety of sources including inscriptions, documents, eyewitness account and earlier histories. Kalhana was different from the writers of Prasastas for he was often critical about rulers and their policies. Students, let me see how Kalhana differ from other Prasastas authors. We know very well almost all Prasastas authors not criticize the ruler, but they describes the valiant and victorious of the rulers. Listen carefully, Babu. But Kalhana was often critical about rulers and their policies. So, Kalhana entirely different from other Prasastas authors. Hence, I hope you understand everything I have conducted so far. Are you got it, Babu? Okay, Kanna. Next, we are moving warfare for wealth. Students, initially you must learn about the meaning of warfare. That means engagement in or the activities involved in war or conflict. Babu, so far we learned about meaning of warfare. Now we discuss about the warfare for wealth. Warfare for wealth means ruling dynasties were based in specific regions, but they tried to control other areas. Students, when we study about the warfare for wealth, the tripartite struggle is the unavoidable topic which is described by the historians. Babu, let me discuss about tripartite struggle. Students, Kannauj in Ganga Valley was an area. The Gurjara Pratihara, the Rashtrakuta and the Pala dynasties tried to control over the centuries. Who are they? Gurjara Pratihara, the Rashtrakuta and the Pala dynasties tried to the control for centuries. Because there were three parties in this long-run conflict. Historians often describe it as the tripartite struggle. Students, you understood very well clear the tripartite struggle. Students, rulers tried to target temples. Why? Because rulers tried to expose their power and resources by constructing large temples. So, let me see about one such ruler. Yes, students, his name is Sultan Muhammad of Ghazni. His ruling period was between 997 to 1030. Yes, Ghazni extended control over parts of the Central Asia, Iran and northwestern part of the subcontinent. Students, almost every year Ghazni raided the subcontinent. Ghazni targets were wealthy temples including that of Somnath in Gujarat. Students, Sultan Mahmud of Ghazni raided the subcontinent 17 times. His sole purpose was to plunder. Plunder means looted. Looted the wealth of India. Now you understood clearly. Sultan Mahmud of Ghazni sole purpose was to looted the wealth of India. It is the main purpose of the Sultan Mahmud of Ghazni. Students, now I am asking one question to you, Babu. Do you know how many times Sultan Mahmud Ghazni looted India? Yes, your answer is correct. 17 times. Babu, once again, I am asking one question to you, Kanna. Why Sultan Mahmud Ghazni invaded in India? I think you are so much brilliant student. So your answer is correct. Yes, Babu, he wanted to looted in Indian temples. That means Somnath in Gujarat. And much of the wealth from Indian temples Sultan Mahmud Ghazni carried away was used to create a splendid capital city at Ghazni. Students, next important thing, Sultan Mahmud Ghazni entrusted a scholar named Al-Biruni to write an account of the subcontinent. Students, the Arabic work known as the Kitab al-Hind. Do you know what is Kitab al-Hind? Yes. Al-Biruni had written about the religious, political and intellectual aspects of India. This book name is called Kitab al-Hind. Students, similarly, now we are going to see about the another king who engaged in warfare, included the Sahamanas, later known as the Chauhans. Students, Chauhan ruled over the region around Delhi and Ajmer. Chauhans were engaged in conflict with Salukyas of Gujarat and the Kahadawalas of western Uttar Pradesh. Students, and also third Prithviraj was a popular Chauhan ruler who defeated Afghan ruler Ghori in 1191 but lost to him in 1192. Students, shall we recall the topic which has been seen so far? As the first one is the emergence of new dynasties and second one is administration in the kingdom. Third one is Prasastas and land grants. Finally, warfare for wealth. Next we are moving is the very interesting topic about the Solas dynasties. Students, the topics that we will study are introduction from Urayur to Tanjavur, splendid temples and bronze sculpture. Third one is agriculture and irrigation. Finally, the administration of the empire. All these topics are related to the Cholas empire. Students, now let's see how the Cholas become powerful in mid-9th century and remained a very powerful kingdom for almost 4 centuries. The story starts in Kanchipuram. Solas were subordinate of the Pallava kings at Kanchipuram. Kanchi was the capital of the Pallava dynasties and there was a conflict between Pallava and Pandya dynasties. Students, so the Cholas took advantage of this conflict. Mutharayar was a subordinate or was understudy of the Pallava kings and they controlled Kaveri Delta region. After that, Babu, Vijayalaya of the Chola family from Urayur captured the Kaveri Delta from Mutharayar in the middle of the 9th century.
and he built a town called Tanjavur and also built a temple of goddess Nishumba Shudini there. Students, now Kaveri Delta was very important for the Cholas. Students, Kaveri Delta had fertile land. That is why it was very important. After all these Cholas grew in power and successor of Vijayalaya's conquered regions of Pandya and Pallava dynasties and made them a part of the kingdom. Babu, now after Vijayalaya, many Chola kings expanded the kingdom and also conquered many parts of other kingdoms. But among all these great kings, first Rajaraja. He is great considered to be the most powerful Chola ruler. First Rajaraja became king in 985, expanded control over region of Pandya and Pallava dynasties. His son, first Rajendra Chola, continued his policies and expanded the kingdom even further. He raided the Ganga Valley and also Sri Lanka and countries of Southeast Asia. Students, do you know which is the Southeast Asia countries? As Southeast Asia country is Malaysia, Singapore, Thailand, Philippines, Vietnam, Cambodia, Burma, Indonesia. These are the Southeast Asia countries. And also he developing a navy for this raid. Students, I hope you understood what I have seen so far. Students, now we are going to see another topic regarding Chola Empire is splendid temples and bronze sculpture. Babu, now one thing you must remember is that Cholas were not only warriors, but they were able administrators. They had love for art and architecture. Students, next we see how the Chola rule influenced the art and architecture of the country. Cholas built many beautiful temples across their kingdom. Once again, Cholas built many beautiful temples across their kingdom. Two of these amazing beautiful temples were built by first Rajaraja and first Rajendra Chola. Rajaraja built a splendid temple at Tanjavur. One more time, Babu. Rajaraja built a splendid temple at Tanjavur and Rajendra Chola built a temple at Gangaikonda Cholapuram. One more time. Rajendra Chola built a temple at Gangaikonda Cholapuram. Students, one point that you must remember is that during this period, temples were not only for worship. Instead, they were they were hub of craft protection and lot of people used to live around the temples. Students, now your question may arise. Who used to grant such big portion of land for the temple? So, as you already know, rulers used to grant land for the temples. Also, the produce of this land, for examples, crops, fruits, etc., were sold and that money were used for the people who worked at the temple. Students such as garland makers, cooks, sweepers, musicians, dancers and so on. Temples were not only a place of worship. They were hub of economic, social and cultural life as well economic. Children, So it's kind of creating jobs, social and cultural. As you know, temples were centers of craft protection. The most popular craft at the time was making of bronze images. Students, Chola bronze images are considered amongst the finest in the
Students,
world. Shall I give one example of bronze images? Can you guess it? Yes. The bronze images of Lord Nadaraj. Next, we are moving one of the major achievements of the Chola Empire was development in irrigation and agriculture methods. Next, we discussed earlier that Kaveri for very important for the Cholas. Children, many of the achievements of the Cholas were made possible through new developments in agriculture, such as Kaveri branches off into several small channels before draining into the Bay of Bengal. Students, Kaveri water from these channels provides the necessary moisture for agriculture, particularly the cultivation of rice. That means, thus forming fertile plains also the river provides water and moisture that is necessary for crops, especially rice. So, what was the contribution of Cholas? How did they improve agriculture and irrigation method? So, under the Cholas empire, people started growing crops on a larger scale. Students, now if you are growing more crops, then you need more land. Hence, forest had to be cleared. Also, the land was uneven at the some places. Students, so the land had to be leveled. Embankments had to be made. Now, we just discussed that how a fertile land is formed when a river overflows. Students, another achievements of Chola Empire is embankment and construction of canals, which means in the Kaveri Delta region embankments had to be built to prevent flooding and canals had to be constructed to carry water to the fields. After that, wells were dug and tanks were constructed to collect rainwater. So, it helps in releasing the right amount of water from rivers and canals. At last, we will see the administration of the empire. Students, the administration of the empires was also well organized. In Chola Empire, settlements of peasants were called Ur. Ur pronunciation is Ur. The larger units of the groups of Ur were called Nadu. Students, what is meant by Ur? As the peasants who lived in a place is known as Ur. It's called the Ur. After that, Babu, the village council and the Nadu performed several administrative functions such as dispensing justice and collecting taxes. One more time, what are the several administrative functions? Can you say anyone? Yes, such as dispensing justice and collecting taxes. Students, now we will go to see who exercised considerable control over the affairs of the Nadu under the supervision of central Chola government. As students, rich peasants of the Velala caste exercise considerable control over the affairs of the Nadu under the supervision of the central Chola government. Students, now you understand clearly, I think. That means we know very well Nadu is the group of Ur. What is Ur, Babu? As you know very well. Settlement of peasants known as Ur. Who controlled the Ur and Nadu? Rich peasants of Valala caste. Students, in the Chola Empire, some rich landowners were honored with the titles like Vendavelan and Arayar. Here, Babu, Vendavelan means a Velan or peasant serving three kings. After that, Arayar means chief. The rich landowners were also entrusted with important offices of the state at the center. Students, after that we will discuss about Brahmadaya. Okay, what is Brahmadaya? Yes, I will discuss to you, Babu. As Brahmanas often received land grants or Brahmadaya. One more time, Brahmadaya means the land given to the Brahmanas as a grant. Okay. A large number of Brahmana settlements emerge in the Kaveri Valley as in the other parts of the South India. Students, each Brahmadaya was looked after by an assembly or Sabha. Sabha means the assembly of Brahmanas. Sabha of prominent Brahmanas landholders which worked efficiently. So, their decisions were recorded in details in inscriptions on the stone of walls of temples. After that, Babu, association of traders known as Nagarams. One more time, Babu. Association of traders known as Nagarams. Also occasionally performed administrative functions in towns. That's it, Babu. Now you understood clearly about the lesson chapter 2, New Kings and Kingdoms. Students, all of you take your textbook, read the lesson line by line